Smile on his face, and he's shining a salute to the American race. Good. Good morning, USA!
A few things to note going into this run. Yes, I'm playing on the original PlayStation 2 build of American Dad. The PS2 has very little lag, which, while making the window for tricks tighter, the ultimate time save from the lag reduction is definitely worth it, as well as being faster since the PS2 build was the original build of American Dad. A lot of the glitches and skips that were patched in the GameCube port and Xbox 360 remaster are here in the PS2 build, making it the definitive version of the game to run. One last very important thing to note here is that I didn't get the world record. This specific run here was used to showcase the PS2 exclusive tricks and how they can be used to cut time dramatically in future runs with enough optimization. There's definitely a lot of potential here, especially considering other exploits that I didn't mention, such as the lack of a speed cap when moving in mid-air, or the many wrong warps that can be used to teleport to different places in the map with precise sub-pixel positioning. With those things out of the way, let's get into the run itself.
On his face, and he's shining a salute.
Alright, so what happened here? Basically, using tricky movement and positioning using the limited movement we are given with Stan at the beginning of the game, we can perform what is known as an SDW, or a slipper down warp. Because the PlayStation 2 doesn't render all of the textures with collision in the beginning cutscene to reduce lag and save memory, if the player does a precise texture lineup, and is moved away from their intended position in the beginning cutscene, Stan will clip right through the floor and be warped to the death barrier due to the living room being unloaded. Before Stan can actually be killed, however, the game does a quick check to make sure the death variables, as they're called by the community, are in line for Stan to lose a life. The most important variable in play for this trick is whether or not Stan is in an active cutscene. Obviously, Stan is in an active cutscene, and so the game gets confused and just warps Stan to his next possible position, of which being the kitchen. This is all what causes the game to stutter like you saw in the gameplay. As we all know, there is another loading zone in the kitchen that cannot be avoided through the slipper down warp. However, we already have time saved from skipping the latter half of the beginning cutscene and the window portion altogether. Interestingly enough, a task has proven before that it is possible for Stan to align himself perfectly along a specific texture in the floor that doesn't have collision, while also being able to barely be close enough to the living room loading zone to be able to load it in and be warped to that position. It looks something along the lines of this. Because the trick requires several frame-perfect and precise inputs, it is currently unknown if a human being can perform an SDW into the living room, also known as the LRSDW. Now, let's get back to the run.
To the American race. Good. Good morning, USA!
This trick right here is actually way harder than it looks. Basically, the pause menu in American Dad for the PS2 is really bugged and easily exploitable, and honestly I could make an entire video about how exploitable the pause menu is. To be very brief, when you pause, you can buffer inputs for Stan due to the fact that while the game pauses time, the in-game world is still active. Because of this, there are a number of game exploits that can be achieved through paused button inputs. So essentially you can map your inputs, and through this mapping technique, we can buffer Stan into his car on the first couple of frames. Stan grabs the newspaper, essentially skipping the newspaper text box, and slow flip into the car afterwards altogether. A quicker yet riskier alternative to this strat could be to use Stan's forward momentum as he's coming out of the door to transition into a frame-perfect jump into the car. Due to the difficulty of the strat, however, I opted for the pause mapping strat.
Good. Good morning, USA!
Towards the end of the run here, precise movement is used to move Stan towards the curb to perform a wrong warp using a street lamp out of view from the locked camera. If you pulled it off correctly, the game will stutter as it's loading all the assets of the CIA, as you've seen here.
Good. Good morning, USA!
This run obviously wasn't even close to the current world record of 4.6 seconds set by Novadica. However, I've made it clear that this run wasn't very good, and further tricks and optimizations can be used to get this time down further. First, I'll discuss technical tricks that save significant time, and then I'll discuss strats used in Nova's world record run and how it can be lowered. First of all, let's look at the door skip. Like I said previously, while pause mapping is much safer, it is much quicker to use a frame-perfect jump to get Stan out of the door and into the car much quicker after the family cutscene. Through utilizing Stan's lack of a mid-air speed cap after he jumps out of the kitchen, we can build up enough speed to bypass the newspaper text and door cutscene altogether, sending Stan straight into the car, the LRSDW. Like I said earlier, it has already been proven by a task bot to SDW into the living room, even though it is near impossible for a human to perform. In a hypothetical situation, however, LRSDW combined with a door skip and CIA wrong warp could make for a really good time, possibly even sub 7 seconds if the movement is flawless. As we all know, and as I stated previously, Novadica currently has held the world record of 4.6 seconds in American Dad for the GameCube as of his appearance at AGDQ 2020. And so we will examine the record run that was captured at the event right now.
Here we go. Alright, and he's gonna pause. And there he goes. Oh my gosh, that was it! That was world record! Oh my gosh!
In the beginning here, we see Nova pause mapping right at the beginning here in order to build enough speed using Stan's momentum out of the bed in order to send him flying out of the house, through the street, and directly into the CIA cutscene. So what happened here exactly? Well, basically, the game does a collision check every few frames to make sure Stan isn't clipped into a wall or into an out-of-bounds area. When Stan builds up enough speed like this, Stan is able to move quicker than the several frames in which the game does a collision check, and so Stan can just move straight through walls and loading zones. This is very much akin to the backwards long jump move in Super Mario 64, which functions very similarly to the speed building move that Nova does. The reason Nova even gets the final CIA cutscene is because he precisely slowed himself down just enough so he could set off the cutscene before flying straight into the CIA building here. As for lowering the world record, man, I don't fucking know, do I look like Pan and Coke to you?